the midpoint of the line segment. So first of all, to think about the idea of midpoint in context, if you imagine the city of Toronto and the city of Kingston, as it turns out, if we drew a line from Toronto to Kingston, the middle or midpoint between those two cities is Cobourg. So when you think about it, if you were to start at Toronto, we would call Cobourg the midpoint of the two, or Cobourg would be the halfway point. It's like halfway there. So the midpoint represents the middle or halfway. Now for us, we need to think of that geometrically. So if we had a point at A and a point at B, then this point here in the middle of those 2 points would be the midpoint of line segment AB. So that line on top represents line segment AB, the midpoint or the halfway point. We're going to call it midpoint. Now, the midpoint of some line segments can be found just by looking at it, just by inspection. If I look at this line segment, I know, well, here's one side, here's the other. The middle has to be right there, which is pretty easy. However, for other lines, it's not going to be that easy. If there's a line on a diagonal, we can kind of eyeball the midpoint, but we're not quite sure what the coordinates would be. It looks like it's 3 and a bit, and maybe just under 3 in terms of the coordinates. So we can't just eyeball it. We need a plan. Now we're going to kind of go from something we know. So if I said find the middle of the following pairs of numbers, and we thought about a number line, and I put on the number 4 and the number 10, and I'd said, tell me the middle of that. Again, by inspection, 4, 10, the middle is number 7. You can probably look at that and see, yeah, that works. Well, there's a way we can do that mechanically too. If I take the number 4 and the number 10, if I add them together and then divide by 2, then what I get, 14 divided by 2, I also get 7. I also get the middle. And you've done that operation before. That operation is just called calculating the average. So the midpoint of a line segment, or the middle of a line segment, we find that by just finding the average of the numbers. That's it. So the calculations on it is very, very easy. And we're going to use the same thing for a line segment. Now remember, line segments, they sort of have two numbers or two sets of numbers. We have our x values and we have our y values. So we're just going to do this average calculation twice. We're going to do it using the x coordinates. So whatever this x value is and that x value is, I'm going to add them together and divide by 2, just like the average. And I'm going to do the same thing for the y values. I'm going to add the y values together and divide by 2. Now the formula for this is this, and it looks a little intimidating, but it's not. It's just the two averages put together. This just stands for the x minimum and the midpoint, and the y midpoint. And this is just find the average of the x's, that's the x coordinate, and find the average of the y values, that's the y coordinate. That's it. And xy, this xy represents the midpoint. So for example, if I had this line drawn here, if I had these 2 points on the end and I said, find the coordinates of that midpoint, I'd say, well, all I'm going to do is I'm going to add the x values together. So 2 plus 5, there's my x value 2, there's my x value 5, 2 plus 5, and divide by 2, which is 3.5. And I'm going to add the y values together, 1 and 4, add them together, 1 plus 4, divide by 2 is 2.5. And if I label that point, my x value and my y value, I see 3.5. Okay, I start here, 1, 2, 3.5, got it? And I'm up 2.5, 1, 2.5, perfect. Okay, try these questions.